Ladies and gentlemen, this is Align Mask.
And this is Ender.
And today's episode, we are going to talk about two things. But before we get into that, we have a little announcement to make. So, Ender has made a question on Instagram of what our podcast should be called. And after so many considerations, we do appreciate for those who made a comment of what the podcast should be called. There were some interesting names, but we finally came up with one on our own. And we decided to call this podcast...
So we decided to call it Phantom of the Mask, since... Now, let us explain about this. I know there was some good podcast names that came off of a few of my fans. One about the deep dive with Ender and Align. And Align actually liked that, but I wasn't really much fond of it because it's more of we're going deep into... Sure, we are going deep into, all of our information on stuff. Mostly me because, I go in this kind of stuff. But I felt like it didn't fit us. And then another one was Ender Mask, which I feel like a lot of you would probably think, why don't you just put Ender and Mask together? Boom, Ender Mask. What does that bring? It doesn't bring anything.
You just basically put two names and then just mix them. It's I kind of wanted a title. I really wanted us to have a title. We came up with other titles The Enders of Mask or the Mask of Enders.
Or The End of Mask. We came up with a lot of good stuff. And then as we were searching, I'm like, okay, what about this? I saw one where it was Ender Phantom, and I'm like, okay, wait, we could use Phantom because sometimes we do talk about a lot of horror stuff or uninteresting things that you guys don't know about, but we somehow know about. And I'm like, okay, let's think. We have Phantom, we can use the word Ender, and we can just do or we can switch around and instead of using Phantom Ender, we can use Mask. And then I was like, ooh, Phantom of the Mask. And I was like, boom, there we go.
And that's how we came up with our title. So I hope you guys, we do appreciate for those who commented and suggested names. They were really good names. But unfortunately, we came up with one on our own. So without further ado, here is today's topic. So Ender actually sent me a video of the next killer. I'm not 100% sure if this is official. And or it could be fan base. You know how some people really like to make fan videos.
Oh yeah, 100%. A lot of people make a whole bunch of fan videos, and this doesn't even apply just to Dead by Daylight. This is anything.
Mm-hmm. Or what really was a good one when I don't know who did it. I don't know if you know who did it, but when somebody added Five Nights at Freddy's and Dead by Daylight, they edited so good to the point that it actually looked like Five Nights at Freddy was in Dead by Daylight.
He has done actually a lot of characters and killers as well. He's done a lot of characters and killers actually. He's done Springtrap from FNAF. He's done Slenderman. He's done the alien from Alien Isolation. He's done so many killers, and they look really, really good. But it's really hard to believe it because, like I said, you have to have Dead by Daylight, and the person that wants to be a part of any type of killer, they have to come up with an agreement where they will eventually sign and be yeah, we'll have your killer in this game.
That's what happened to Stranger Things. In case you guys haven't noticed, or if you guys didn't know, Stranger Things ended up, I don't want to really say cancel, but they kind of got rid of the chapter just because they actually signed a contract, and the contract had expired, and they just couldn't renew the contract. Very
sad to most of those people, including me, who didn't get any of the survivors like Steve, Nancy, and the Demogorgon.
But it is, I want to say it is still pretty nice that they still add the perks of, the survivors and the Demogorgon. So it's you didn't miss a chance. Well, you missed a chance to get them, but you still have the opportunity of getting their perks.
Which is something new and surprising, that now you can actually start getting their perks and all that stuff and their abilities and all that stuff. But you can't get the character, which is sad. But, it's better to have their types of perks. Yes, it is a lot better if you actually have the character and just have the perks that go with it. But there are really good, perks like there's one for Nancy, which is like inner healing, kind of the same as like the one where you have to cleanse a lot of tombs in order to heal yourself. Mm-hmm. You cleanse one tomb and you can just heal yourself every single time without having to cleanse another tomb.
I think that's a perk. Like you cleanse a tomb and you have to like step in a locker and wait like a couple seconds, and then you're fully healed.
And then you can still keep doing that without having to cleanse another totem.
Right, but I actually think you're supposed to do it, or to have they added like tokens now, because you know how like some survivors, if you do certain things, you get a token.
Don't mind me. I'm just thinking. No, but like I think they probably have changed some people where you I guess have
I think
tokens. There are some perks that actually have a lot of tokens and all that stuff. And some require tokens, some don't. But I don't think that they have a token thing. I don't even have the perk.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I think it's like, I think like what it is once you cleanse a totem, your perk is active, but it will stay active until, you heal yourself, and then it becomes inactive.
And then you gotta go, reuse it. That's how, yeah. So I think it still works the way how it usually works, unless if you heal yourself or have someone heal you, and then it goes deactive. Yeah.
So, rewinding a few steps. So the video we saw, last time we talked about this... Well, you sent it to me, and I ended up seeing it. So we both saw it.
Well, I saw it first, and then I sent it to you, and I told you about it, and I was like, look.
So, yeah, the video we saw... So last time we talked about this, we were discussing if it was going to be a female. We also discussed that it could be a cyborg, because there were some people that say like, "Oh, this might be a killer robot."
It is 100%. I know for sure it has to do with something with like robot technology or something like that. There is 100%. It is, but we're not fully 100% sure on what the killer actually could be. You know.
Let's talk about like what we saw in the video. So what we saw, or I don't know if you want to explain what we saw.
Okay, I'll explain it. So when I was scrolling through TikTok, I came across a video with the actual killer being of the new chapter in DBD. It, of course, was this woman in cyber, like, tech, all that stuff. She has a mask, but you can still see bits of her face and all that stuff. And she, I guess, has these, like, sharp daggers, like Wolverine kind of does, and I guess uses it to like kill people and all that stuff. So it's like that's her weapon and everything. She has drones, so she can able to like I guess detect survivors and all that stuff, which is interesting. So what I'm getting out from this is that 100% it's someone that has to do with something with technology, someone who's a cyber, someone who's a robot, kind of somewhere along the lines. We just know in particular it is going to be someone that has been inexperienced and recreated as a better version of themselves instead of being fully human.
And according to the video, you do get like 2 new survivors. So it's not just going to be 1 survivor, you get 2 more.
Which is interesting, yeah. So there are 2 new survivors. I didn't actually get a glimpse of it. I know I think one is a female, one is a male, and then you get the killer, who is actually a female, by the way. Well,
then again, like I said before, like we don't know if this is like an actual official video. It could be, somebody edited really good and they just came up with all this stuff.
I don't know. I mean, it looks legit to me. I mean, don't forget when people started saying when Wesker was coming out, like, everyone knew it was Wesker.
Well, when Resident Evil first came out, nobody thought it was Nemesis. Me personally, I honestly thought to myself, no, this has to be Nemesis. Like, people kept saying, like, no, because he has the rockets and, he has the gun. It's not really a fair fight when he has that stuff. But it's like, come on, it's Dead by Daylight. I don't think they're going to add all that stuff.
Well, you see that, and you also see that you also have Leon and Jill. And Leon is the one with Mr. X. Jill is the one with Nemesis. So it's really hard to choose which one are we actually going to get? Are we going to get Mr. X or are we going to get, Nemesis?
Were you disappointed that we didn't get Mr. X?
Kinda. I mean, Mr. X is really... Okay, if you play the gameplay of Resident Evil, Mr. X is really annoying to loop around and, get out of his freaking sight because,
Or I wonder if they'll make it as a skin. Because you know how, like, just recently, the Blight has a Resident Evil skin now.
Which is William, by the way, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, if they decide to keep adding more Resident Evil characters or just new stuff for Resident Evil, because I know there isn't any more Resident Evil games coming out unless if, there's another chapter after Village.
Well, they're recently going to make a release of remake of Resident Evil 4.
They're making it, yeah, and I'm pretty sure they're probably going to start remaking more of.
I think they caught on at this point.
Actually, Rose, Ethan's daughter. They might make a gameplay of it because you do get a storyline of it and all that stuff, and get a better understanding of how she is and all that stuff. But it's like you want to know more of what she's really like because we know from end of Resident Evil 7, like we know how like during that thing. We find out that, or during Resident Evil Village, we found out that Ethan died 3 years ago.
Well, actually, I haven't played Village yet.
I do apologize for the spoilers.
No, trust me. No, it wasn't you. I didn't know about that way before I even met you.
I mean, they've had posted all over on TikTok, so trust me, I played it and it still wasn't the same because a lot of people did. But he did somehow die and somehow became, like, infected. Because if you're in the Resident Evil 7 thing, they basically take people and try to infect them and make them their own,
Right.
With the little girl, whatever her name is, Ellie. I think that's her name.
I think you're just thinking of Last of Us.
No.
No, but...
No, her name starts with an E.
Yeah, because I remember, like, they said it was, like, Experiment E, and then it had, like, numbers after that.
Yeah, but... Anyway, we're getting off track and all that kind of stuff.
So, in my opinion, the killer that we saw, yes, it was a female. I wouldn't really say she was a cyborg, per se, because it looked like, she just built, things, and then she just added them to herself. With that state of mind, like, what do you think, like, her powers might be?
Maybe, okay, so I feel like with any Terminator kind of killer, it's basically you target someone and then you're going after someone. So I guess they probably have a power where they can try to detect someone from a range and all that stuff. The Knight, for an example, he has guards where he can, like, roam, I think it's like 25 meters.
Yeah, well, it depends, like, on the add-ons, too, because then you get some add-ons that says, oh, you can add 5 more meters, or you can make them go even longer.
I would say around at least about 25 to maybe around at least, like, 50 meters.
Like, you'd probably think, like, her power might be some sort of tracking.
Yeah.
Like, she could be able to track people.
I feel like she might be able to track and detect people just like how the Knight is. Maybe a little different because if you... Let's say this. The Knight only can actually track someone if 2 people are in a circle. And it goes for one of those people. So if you and another person are in the thing, it's a 50-50 chance it's not going to be you. And it's going to be the other person. Or it's a 50-50 chance that it's going to be you and not the other person. So if it's like, if she, for an example, or if the Terminator's male, like I said, I'm just sticking with Terminator. If the Terminator or the killer detects, let's say, 2 survivors, they may be able to detect both of them, but only go after one at a time, Like, right. one drone, maybe she'll have, like, one drone that will detect it, but the other drone, like, one of her drones still go with the other person and tries to find where they are, and, while the killer actually manages to get the other person and hook them and all that kind of stuff.
I can actually see that. Fun fact, I don't know if you knew this, but earlier today, me and Ender, we were actually playing Dead by Daylight together, and we were going against the Knight. I didn't know the Knight can actually do this. So when the Knight summons its spirit, whichever spirit it comes out.
It's guard, actually.
Guard,
not
spirit. Well, technically, it's a spirit because you see it orb flying
around.
around.
It's a ghost, technically.
Anyways, Ladies and gentlemen, this one's always trying to correct me for whatever reason.
No, I'm not. He's lying.
Anyways, so if you get caught within its circle, and whichever spirit or guard is following you,
Just say guard.
whichever guard is following you, if you hide in a locker, they can actually open lockers.
If you jump over pallets, they can go through pallets. If you jump over window panes and all stuff, they can do that.
But the good thing about it is that if they open the locker, they'll just hit you. They won't, pick you up and throw you on the ground. They'll just hit you.
No. Like, it is... I did find out this a while ago. I don't remember when precisely, but I was going up against a knight. And I think I was with my other partner, Bubs. And him and we were going against a knight. And I went in a locker because I was being chased by the knight. And I thought, like, it wouldn't attack. And, you can't be, spotted by this thing. I didn't realize he can hit you in a locker, and I was like, shoot, so pallets are useless, window panes are useless, and lockers are useless. Unless if you know how to outsmart the killer and loop the killer around and all that stuff. Yeah, it works, but don't forget, I think you waste like a couple minutes when you're trying to put a pallet down. You waste a couple minutes trying to jump over something and, catch yourself and then continue running and all that stuff.
Right.
So it's pretty obvious that it's like, okay, maybe the new killer might be the same way as the knight. Maybe she or he might be a little different. Again, we're not fully sure because it still hasn't came out yet. I haven't received it. You haven't received it. But I know PC players get it before any console players.
Mm-hmm. But we'll just see what the future holds. And another thing, this is probably old. Well, this is actually technically old. But this is just in case nobody doesn't know because me personally, I hardly go against any twins killer. I don't know if you've been going through twins, but me, it's like a rare chance. I'll be going against someone who will play as a twins. So, here's a little thing I didn't know. Whenever Victor comes out, he's running around chasing you. And if you go hiding in a locker, he can actually lock you in that locker.
Oh, to get flashlight saves and everything like that. Yeah. But I don't really have much struggle with the twins. I mean, if you know how to, like, outsmart Vix and, like, make sure he doesn't hit you, but you run back to him in order to hit him and kick him so he doesn't come back. Yeah. Your best bet is if you're actually wanting to do a save kind of thing, your best bet is to have one person go in a locker, get Vix out, and then come out of the locker while someone is running around with the killer, so that the killer doesn't be able to get you, and then you can't get a save and everything like that. There's a lot of there's a lot of times you are dealing with killers that you really don't want to deal with. For an example, I don't like Pinhead. Not just because you spawn in and you're dealing with pinheads. No. Every time you go for the box, he teleports to you. Okay? And you have to outsmart him and all that stuff, which isn't too bad if you're just there. The one I do not like it when people are only doing gens, hiding in lockers, finding chests, finding totems, and not going for the box.
Mm.
That's something that is annoying because, like, you're in a game where you're with random people. This applies to Call of Duty, Fortnite, Minecraft, any type of game that is multiplayer. This is what you're dealing with, okay? And you can't communicate in this game, which is really dumb, which they need to fix. I don't think they should add a voice chat in where you can hear people voice chatting and all that stuff because,
You know what they should do? Like, I think it will be pretty cool. I think this will actually be kind of hard to do, but it would be really cool if the people in Dead by Daylight can do this. Is that they can have the option to do voice chat, but instead of say I'm at one part of the map and you're way on the other side of the map, we won't be able to hear each other. But if we're like right next to each other, we can actually communicate. You know what I mean?
Don't forget, the killer can also hear if you decide to have a voice chat. So he can hear when you're plotting and all that stuff. And be like, hey, I want to go do this gen over here. You go do the gen that's like still near me, but like a couple meters away. And the killer would be able to hear where you are. Or like you're saying like, oh, I'm hiding in a locker somewhere near like the main building. Killer's gonna find you, killer's gonna get you, you're gonna get hooked, and eventually you're gonna die.
But I mean, like, if the killer's like right next to you, yeah. But again, if he's way on the other side of the map and you're on the other side,
no, what you're saying is that one person is here, one person is on the other side of the map, and they're trying to communicate through VChat. Okay?
No, that's not what I'm saying. Like, if one person's here and the other person's here, they're not going to be able to talk to each other because obviously that's physical impossible. But if they're right next to each other, yes, they can talk to each other.
Yeah, no, I still think like it's not a good idea to have a voice chat because even if you're still plotting to figure out how to like, let's say for an example, you're here, killer's like here, okay? You two are plotting your thing and all that stuff. Killer's coming at you and all that stuff because he sees you and doesn't see your other person. Killer's coming after this person. You're trying to loop it and all that stuff, but he's hearing your plan of how you can loop it. So if you went this way, the killer's going that way. If you went this way, the killer's doing this. And you'll be stuck in a loop where you're trying to just go back and forth until eventually, let's say one of your teammates wanted to like, you know, help out and like all that stuff. Then one of your teammates would get injured and then you couldn't go in for the save. Or let's say you're here, the killer's here, you dropped a pallet, your friend's down, okay? And you want to do a CJ, right? You go over, but the killer manages to grab you and all that stuff. Because let's say you're like this, and it's like, oh wait, I want to do a CJ. And yeah. There's no point in doing a voice chat, especially if you're like here with your friends. Because if they did a voice chat where you can hear it, and, you know, they can hear it, but the killer can't, that's a whole different story, you know? So if you're wanting to do a voice chat, you're only allowing the survivors to have a voice chat, not the killer. But the killer can still hear your voice chat.
But that's what I'm saying.
But he would still hear your plots and all that stuff, or your plans of, all this kind of stuff.
I think that's really up to you. If you're going to say your plan right in front of him, then yeah, obviously he's going to hear it.
I'm not saying like directly. I'm just saying it's like, okay, so if we do this and try to loop him around, you know what I mean? It's just little moments when they're trying to talk to their friends about it. It's when a killer can be like, yeah, I know what you're doing. Because don't forget, killers have perks where they go against survivors. Survivors have perks that try to go against killers. So it's like you have to have like a set where it's like equal. Because he can have, I don't know, let's say for an example, he can see your aura, but you have an add-on, like a key, where you can see his aura. Mm-hmm. Or you have a perk where you can see his aura. And it's like, it's really hard to just, you know, have a voice chat. It's best you can have a voice chat where you can type or have emotes that are a lot easier, which DBD could do is add new emotes and stuff, or stop. Or they can usually have like, you know, little chat things where it says like, hey, come here, I'm over at this gen, can you help me out? You know, like little messages they can send to their teammates without the killer knowing. Just hit the mic. But it's like they can send messages to their teammates and saying like, hey, can you help me out over here, you know? Like if they eventually decide to start adding like every survivor has a walkie-talkie and, you know, you can send messages to your teammates and all that stuff to be like, you need help, so you have to see like who's available. Let's say one is on a gen, one is being chased, one is like, you know, like two people are on a gen and one is being chased. One of those friends can come help you. Let's say you're hooked, and you can have that message sent, be like, oh, help me get off the hook. Send it to one of those people on the gens. One of those people can come off, come get you, and, you know, you go back. Simple as that.
You said simple as that, but then you just made a whole freaking plan all of a sudden.
Listen, a lot of people would love to have voice chat in Dead by Daylight so you can hear people and tell people and be like, hey, I need help with the gen. Stop hiding in a fucking locker, you know, and do your job. Kind of thing.
Right. one thing that Dead by Daylight should add, and I'm kind of curious if this is going to be an actual perk because I have talked about this like a couple of times, and I swear to God, if they do add this perk to like any of the survivors, I'm officially thinking yes, the government is watching us. The government is telling Dead by Daylight people all this. So
What's the perk?
so here's a perk I think will be a good perk. It's going to be called Out of My Way. What the perk does is, I don't know if this happens to people, but this happens to me a lot. Like, whenever you get a fucking survivor in your way, and for whatever reason they're always in your way, that's when you have the perk Out of My Way. What you'll do is you get to push the survivor out of your freaking way, and you can run.
Just go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but what if the opposite direction? That's where the killer's at.
Would you rather be stuck behind a stupid survivor or just be dead down by a killer?
I'd rather have...
Me? I'd go for the killer. I'm not sticking with this dumb survivor that doesn't know shit what they're doing.
I'd rather just push the survivor out of my way and run. So it's like, here's your three options. 1, get killed by the survivor. 2, be blocked or get killed by the killer. I don't know if I said get killed by the survivor. 2, be blocked by the survivor. Or 3, push the survivor out of the way and you can run while you still live.
Well, you have some killers actually, if a survivor goes into a dead end and all that stuff, sometimes they will, like, you know, they will stop, they will look, be like, please, like, let me get out of this, let me, like, retrace my steps and all that stuff. Because I have done this so many times. I have ran into a lot of, like, you know, spots and all that stuff where I just get into a dead end and then I have to get out, but I'm still near the killer, okay? Of course, I don't stop because I'm trying to get myself out of the thing, but I still manage to get hit by the killer either way, so.
Yeah, and I know earlier you said the killer you hate to go against is
Pinhead.
Pinhead, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of other killers as well.
But
that
in
I hate going against.
in my opinion, the number one killer I hate going against is Leatherface. To me,
I also hate him as well as Hillbilly. Not Hillbilly as much, but like
Leatherface, it's like there's almost no point of playing the game because he has two weapons. One is a hammer, and the other one's a chainsaw.
Same thing as Hillbilly.
99% of the time, they always use the chainsaw. They never really use the hammer. Why? Because the chainsaw, if you get hit, you go down instantly. And if you're getting chased by him while he's using his chainsaw, you gotta run for like 10 minutes until finally he dies down.
Yeah, but don't forget, if you're going against Bubba, there's two types of Bubbas you have. You have there's a lot of ways Bubba can be a Bubba. But the most common ones is you have a Bubba that plays the actual game correctly, or you have a basement Bubba.
Because he can just hide his...
He just hides in the basement, hides his chest, and if you give him an item, he can give you his chest. But if you don't like the item in the chest, you can give back the item and just get your own item back. It's a fair trade that you're supposed to do with him in order for you to be able to actually get it. But if you're also dealing with Bubba as a normal killer and all that stuff, he is annoying because don't forget, Bubba can literally just camp. You can be hooked. Bubba can still be, like, nearby, like, chasing after somebody else. He has a chainsaw. He also has a perk, as well as, like, Hillbilly. They both have perks where their chainsaws don't die out quickly after they hit a survivor.
Oh, real quick before I forget. So, in case you guys don't know, I have Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. It is Align Mask. And, so I got a notification from Twitter, and it was about Dead by Daylight. This is for all the PC players. I don't know about console players yet. I don't know if this is a thing yet. But there is a hacker in DBD that will fucking hack into your computer through Dead by Daylight. So if your character start acting funny in any sort of way, I automatically say turn off your computer right there and then. Because it's a sign that somebody just hacked into your computer.
I don't think it happens on Xbox because I think it's a lot more complicated when you're trying to hack someone on Xbox. Because if you're using a PC and you're trying to hack someone off of Xbox, it's going to take a lot more work than just hacking someone on their computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Though, do keep an eye out. This is mostly going to, like, PC players. Keep an eye out for hackers, especially console players. any people in general, just keep an eye out for hackers. Make sure, if something goes off, turn your system off, unplug it, and don't like go near it for the next couple minutes. Give it time to like process, so that they can't actually get into your access anything important and change some stuff up and everything like that.
Right. All right. So we actually been talking about Dead by Daylight longer than I thought we could, to be honest. Because there's actually a lot of things we could talk about Dead by Daylight. But I do want to get to our second part because we are at the halfway mark right now before the end of this podcast. So second thing we want to talk about, games versus movies and TV shows.
This is also playing on to that. DVD is also a game, but we're also talking about other games as well as them becoming into movies. So
the reason why we want to start this topic is because my partner, Ender, here, has been watching The Last of Us. They have not played the game, but don't worry, your man right here has played the game. So I know the difference between the show and the game. So here's what we're going to talk about. So
before you start saying that, the reason why I haven't played the game is because, one, I don't have access to it and I can't really purchase the game. And two, we're blaming this a lot of people on social media that, they like to spoil shit for no reason. This goes to any game that's coming out or any movie or anything like that. You guys spoil it. And it's not funny because it's like you just ruin the experience for someone who hasn't seen it like me. I've seen bits of it. I've understand little bits of the story. I know what The Last of Us is mostly about and everything like that because of you guys. Mostly because of you guys, but also from him as well.
Well, I should probably give out hey, we're not really trying to, but this is probably just spoiler alerts because we might say some things in case you guys haven't even watched the first episode yet. Because, for example, one of my friends, I was telling them about, hey, the show's about to start, and I'm gonna get into it, and they're like, oh, cool, how many episodes they're gonna have? And well, they're gonna start with one, and then they're gonna add a new one every week. And then he tells me then I'm not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna watch it until they have everything, and then I'm just gonna binge watch it. So this kind of goes out to the people who also made that as a plan of they don't want to watch it yet until every single episode is out, and then they're going to binge watch it. So again, this is a heads up, spoiler alert. We're not going to try to spoil anything, but a thing or two might come out just in case.
We also have a special someone to come with us and, talk about this as well. Say hello and say what your name is. Okay. If you guys didn't catch that or hear what it says, we are here with El Gringo, Alline's cat. Say hi. He said hello. But anyway, yeah, if we're going to be talking about something, if you've never seen the movie or haven't started watching it or haven't played the game and all that stuff, or you started playing the game but you don't want to finish it, please, skip this part. So,
I would say just turn it off because we're about to just talk about it at this point. So before we continue, you might as well just click off if you don't want any spoilers or if you don't want anything, if you don't want to know anything.
And you'd rather just play the game and, learn it yourself. Then you can come back here and, listen to the rest of the podcast.
So without further ado, let's begin the discussion. So again, they haven't played the game. I have. We've been watching the episodes at the same time. So what are your thoughts about Last of Us?
Okay, so seeing the movie and, getting a little bit of understanding of, what it's about, I like it. Someone won't leave me alone for 5 minutes. But I like it. I like the storyline of it that, okay, it's an apocalypse game, which I really love. I don't really watch The Walking Dead, not just because, I'm not really much of a fan of it and all that stuff. Which, I'm not. It's just, there's certain types of ways I want to, an apocalypse to go. How The Last of Us goes is a lot more of two people, you're understanding that they're trying to, be together. What they're doing is that there's these two people that are working up and teaming up together. So one of them can send them to, where is it? Wisconsin? Is that what they're going for?
Um, well, again, spoiler alert for anyone. Wisconsin is where his brother is.
Oh, okay.
So
he's going to his brother. Okay, never mind. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little off track.
I think they're going to DC, to drop off Ellie.
Okay.
But they're going to go to Wisconsin first.
Okay. Anyway, sorry, we're getting off track. But, you're understanding these two people, which is Joel and Ellie, and you understand, like, how their partnerships and all that stuff. And it goes into more detail and all that stuff and how they are slowly going to start to, like, get closer and closer, and then Joel's afraid that that bond is going to slowly, like, break.
Well, you gotta understand, Joel doesn't really want to be too close to Ellie because, he lost his daughter, so obviously he doesn't want to get close to anyone, especially when it comes to little kids. And he knows all she is just a package. That's pretty much what he sees. That's what he sees into her, that all she is just a package that he needs to drop off, and that's it. They go their separate ways.
Well, and yeah, but at the same time, you can also see that as they're doing their little journey, they're starting to get a little close.
Yeah, they're starting to get along. Like Joel, he would ignore her, not acknowledge her, and not really laugh. But he starts to get warm up to her. Like starts to laugh at her stupid little jokes.
Yeah, he's slowly starting to warm up to her, and starting to like her more. And yes, still sees Ellie as like a companion and all that stuff. But as you get more on into the game, and as like the movie keeps playing, or the show that keeps like going on and all that stuff, you get a better understanding of like their connection.
You really do. And they do make a lot of differences, like compared to the show and the game. But at the same time, me personally, I mean, I've seen people say like they start to hate the show because they changed this, they changed that character. This is not what happened in the game. But it's like, hey, you know what? Me personally, I actually kind of like how they make the show. Like, it was a bit of a shock. Again, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the show yet. So, many of you guys know Bill. Was it just Bill? I want to say his name was Billy, but Bill? I think they just said Bill.
No, it was Bill.
So, many of you know Bill in the game. He was a paranoid guy. He set up all those traps. And he did have a partner, Frank. It was Frank, right? That was his name. Yeah. They kept the names. Yeah, they kept everything. But in the game, Frank had enough of Bill and ran away. But obviously he got infected. But before he turned, he decided to commit suicide by hanging himself. That's what happened in the game. In the show, again, spoiler alert, he's a homosexual. They end up being gay together. And it did shock me because it's like, they went like the complete opposite versus the game. But in all honesty, I actually did like it because it's like, hey, you know what? Here's two people. They're strangers. One's paranoid. He is still paranoid in the show. He was still like, a little iffy with Frank. He was like, look, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want, but you better get the hell away from me. But they end up being a gay couple, and they built a little town, they were growing fruit, and, they built a good life. Yeah, I don't know, should I say what happened to them in the end, or should I not?
Let me say my thoughts, and then we'll see what happens. But when I also found out about the thing, when I learned from him that Bill was this guy who was very paranoid, he built, like, this bunker. I don't know if that still applies in the game.
No, okay, so in the game, he didn't live in a bunker. He was actually living in a church.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go off by what the game is and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, going off why I said this, because in the movie he lives in a home in a bunker. In the game he's in this church. But you learn that Bill is like this very paranoid like guy who can't really trust a lot of people. And, it's like, he doesn't know really, like, 100% is going on. He might. Maybe it's a little different until he starts to understand what actually goes on. Like at first maybe he didn't, but then slowly starts to understand it more and all that stuff. Like I said, I haven't played the game, but you know. And he meets this guy named Frank, who, again, he is like a little concerned of trusting him. Because, like I said, if you're in a zombie apocalypse, it's really hard to trust people. Because you don't know if they're still infected, you don't know if they're not infected, you don't know if they're running away from people, you don't know, like, who they are.
Or you don't know if they're actually, like, a raider, but, they just send one person, so it looks like, he's on his own. And then he goes back, and turns out he's actually with a group of people.
Yeah, so it's like, you're in this little thing where it's like, you can't trust people. So he, like, meets Frank. You've heard the rest of the story of how it goes with Align. But when you find a little bit more, when it's a lot different in the movie, you tend to understand that Bill is a little different, Yes, he's still, like, the same old guy who's paranoid, but as time grows, he starts to get less and like a little less paranoid. I don't think you notice it, but I kind of did. Maybe he's still paranoid. I know that 100%. But that paranoid slowly decreases when he starts to learn more about Frank and, still understanding him and slowly starting to trust him and the little things. It's always the little things. Care about the little things. But you just get a better understanding that Bill wouldn't be this kind of like, person who's a homosexual, who is attracted to men and all that stuff, because you don't really know the full story of why, Bill in the movie is like this, You think like, oh, he's this big tough guy who can take care of himself, doesn't need anybody. He has like all this weaponry and like all the supplies and like everything like that. He's this big buff guy, and you think to him like he's the last person that's going to survive in an apocalypse because he is prepared for this. He knows what he's doing and all this kind of stuff. But then when he has like someone else come into his life, he tends to lower his guard a bit and know that he can trust this one person and feel comfortable with them,
Right. But he's still a paranoid. Like, he still built, like, traps and freaking make the fence all electrical. But, tell you, we're not going to spoil the ending. We're not going to say what happens in the end.
But for going off of what it is a really good movie. And if you've never played the game like me and you really would like to play the game, I would suggest giving the game a shot and then, catch up to like how far you are in the movie and then see how it could be different in the game and so on and so forth.
And then, so here's another me personal thing. So the actors who play as Joel and Ellie, I like who they chose for Joel. The guy actually looks like Joel from the game, and he actually does sound like Joel from the game. So they picked the perfect person to play as Joel. Now with Ellie, at first I was a bit iffy. Because in the game, she looked a certain way versus the girl in the show. That's when I was like, oh, I don't know if this girl can pass as Ellie. But actually continue watching the show, they actually picked a perfect person to play as Ellie.
Yeah, actually, when I saw the movie for the first time, I was like, okay, yeah, they actually started picking good people for like good roles. Now, when I was like wondering the infected and all that stuff, when I was doing that, I was like, they actually found really good people to play as the infected, because they would do it exactly like how the gameplay is. And this is with any zombie apocalypse. You have to find the right people that has like, played the game, see how it goes, how they would act, all this kind of stuff, and it's really good detail in it.
Well, here's another thing too, in case you guys haven't noticed. And this goes for people who've seen the show, but if you guys haven't noticed this, at the end of each episode, after the credits, if you want to fast forward after the credits, they actually do a bonus footage of how they made the episode. They talk about like, hey, we made the episode like this, we hired these people. So the way they hired people to play as the infected, they want to make sure like, hey, I think like the first thing they ask you like, hey, have you played the game? Because we want those people. we can tell the difference between people who are just trying to act like the infected versus the people like, yeah, they play the game, they know how the infected people act.
Yeah, it's a lot interesting that they find good people to play as these type of roles, and it just really gives it off more of a detail. Like, oh my goodness, these people have played it. It's so perfect. Like, I love it. I love how they like act. It's like it's 100% perfection.
Like for example, like I think it was episode 2, maybe 3, or maybe Bill was the third episode. Yeah, Bill was the third episode. Episode 2 is when they go against clickers. What were your thoughts about the clickers?
So I know that clickers are these things that cannot see but can hear.
Yeah, they could hear really good.
And it kind of terrified me a little bit because I was like, okay, they're in this museum area. I don't know if that also applies in the game.
Yeah, in the game. Yeah,
okay.
They're in the
museum. So
museum.
Going off of like both a perspective, they're in a game, like they're in a museum, and they're going against like these clickers. That's where a lot of glass is. And anything that like, it shatters and all that stuff, it's all on the floor, and it's a lot more noisy than you would expect. I don't know if any of you guys ever would be in a normal museum, but museums are very big, and there is much of a big echo to it. So if you're like screaming like echo, and it echoes back and it's reflecting off of it, you know for a fact they're going to hear you, because they can literally be in a different room, and you can be in a room that's like, 2 or 3, like, you can be, like, down the hall in, like, another room, and you just be like, echo, and, yeah, they can hear you. So, my thoughts on it, it's terrifying, because they can hear you for a really sharp, good distance, and it's like, oh, shoot, you're surrounded by glass, you're near places where there's a lot of, like, dirt and rocks and all that stuff that makes a lot of noises.
And considering how old the building is, the floors can be creaky.
So it's like, yeah, it's terrifying. I think that is the most terrifying character in The Last of Us. I mean, I know there's like other ones, but I think those ones are the more terrifying, because other ones probably can have really bad hearing and just can't hear you at all, but they can see you. But you have these like clickers that can hear so far. And like I said, you can be in a different room and you can make one little noise, and then they are coming for you.
Right. And another thing, too. So, before they got to the museum, in the game, they were being chased by Fedra, which is like another military group. But they got separated from... Well, no, I think they didn't get separated. I think... what was her name again? I always forgot. I forgot her name now. The girl that they were with at first. Let's just call her Michelle for now. So, yeah, after she got infected.
Oh yeah, her. I'm not sure what her name was, but with her, yeah.
Yeah, after she got infected, they were being chased by Fedra, and they were actually supposed to go into a train, like underground train station, and that's when there's Fedra, and there was also infected around. That was another thing they changed. And another thing they changed versus the game. In the game, you know how like in the show there was like the fungus, like you can see the fungus. In the game, that's not how it is. Instead, it's smoke and spurs that's all over the place. But I can understand why they changed that, because it's like, they're gonna have to find gas masks, and what if they break their gas masks? There's like a lot to do versus like, hey, you know what? Instead of like, smoke, let's just make it like an actual fungus that's spreading around.
Yeah.
Which they did do research. That's how fungus actually works. They spread it around. They don't just puff out smoke or anything.
Actually, also an interesting thing about fungus is that if you touch a live fungus from one thing in the earth, all the infected and all that stuff can actually feel it from miles. And this is actually with real fungus. If you touch a fungus from one thing to thing, like one place, all the way to the other side, that other fungus can actually feel that type of touch. And It's really interesting that if you just touch it, you're literally summoning like so many zombies to come at you.
Right. And the people who made the show, they did do their research. They're like, hey, let's try to make this realistic as possible. So they have done their research and they really try to make the show more realistic as possible, which I could actually appreciate. I really like how they do this show.
No, but it's just what I think, like, personally, it's a really good, you know, movie about it and a gameplay about it that you play and understand more of, like, what actually happens in the whole gameplay together.
Right. So right now we are at the 10-minute mark. I just want to say some stuff real quick. So I know, like, when it comes to like video games turned into movies or TV shows, they always get like some sort of bad rep. I kind of look at it as a, hey, you know what? Let's just try our best to maybe change it up a little bit. I think that's what they're trying to do. It's like, hey, let's not try to make it look exactly like a game. Let's mix it up a little bit. So with 10 minutes to spare, we will talk about more episodes, but we'll probably talk about that another time. Is there something else you want to talk about?
So since we're still on the topic of like movies and TV shows like becoming and all that stuff, let's talk about the new FNAF movie that's supposedly being working on right now in the month of February. Okay? So a lot of people are really excited that Scott Cawthon, the one who actually decided to make Five Nights at Freddy's really come true, this is his last project to do, was to make a movie and all that stuff. Now, as I was going through, movies and all that stuff, I found this video, and I'm pretty sure I sent it to you, I found out that in the movie they're giving them white gloves. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I haven't played the game. I haven't really got into the story that much.
Would you like me to give you a brief story of
just give me like a brief story.
Okay, so technically it's a pizzeria place that has 5 missing kids go down with a killer called William Afton. And these souls are trapped in these animatronics who are trying to basically kill William Afton or make him understand that what he is doing is not acceptable and are trying to punish him for it. Okay? So if you were to see... You've tried Help Wanted before, so you know like what the animatronics look like of Freddy, Bonnie, Foxy, and Chica, right?
Right.
What do they all have that's something that the movie doesn't have? White gloves.
Right.
So for my thoughts about it is a lot of people really don't really like how the movie is having white gloves than the actual gameplay.
So the animatronics, they have white gloves.
Yes, the animatronics have white gloves.
Why?
So I'm assuming that it's a little differency so you can tell which one is the actual real gameplay, like the real game versus the real movie and all that stuff. But like I said, we're also going back in time when I think it was like Chuck E. Cheese when some of the animatronics had white gloves. And don't forget, this is like back in like 1980s, right? So most of the animatronics wouldn't have any color print fur that is the same color of their fur. Like Freddy has brown, Bonnie has purple, Chica has yellow, and Foxy has red.
Right.
But you can see that Foxy is the only one that actually doesn't have like the rest of his color and all that stuff because he's a pirate, he's mostly damaged and all that stuff. And it also says on his thing that he is out of order. Okay? So, do you think it's a good idea? So the reason why they have gloves is so they can tell the difference between the both game and the movie.
I honestly don't see, like... like, I get what you're saying, but it's like... I honestly don't see the point of white gloves. It's like, they should have just kept it original. Like, just... I know, like... It's like I said before, they're not going to try to make it exactly like the game. Like, they're not going to be like, hey, let's try our best to make it look exactly like the game. Like, no. Let's try to mix it up. But adding white gloves, I honestly just don't see the point of that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of people are understanding that, oh my goodness, they are adding white gloves onto the animatronics and it's not really suitable for the actual Five Nights at Freddy's. But don't forget, you're having people who are trying to make this movie that this game first came out since 2014. Okay? And all the games and all that stuff up until now are like, all the same characters where it has a bear, a bunny, a fox, a chicken. Okay? And you're still trying to keep it simple up until you have Security Breach where they add like new characters. Or if you are familiar with some of these things, they also have ones where it's like there's a pig, there's an elephant, there's a frog, there's a hippo. Like there's these all new characters. I don't understand it. But it's like a lot of people are not really fond of that.
Are these characters in the game, or they're just adding them to the show?
No, they're just in games of different games of the FNAF and all that stuff. It's just a lot of people don't really find it interesting that the original characters from the original Five Nights at Freddy's movie is getting white gloves. For an example, which you found out about it, is that they're also adding Veronica from Security Breach to the first ever game. When, in particularly, in the first game, you have William, you have Phone Guy, and you have the first Night Guard, who I believe is Michael. Those are the three main characters.
Okay.
Veronica isn't a part of that. Veronica is in the new Security Breach, which some people I don't really like personally, because you're adding a character.
You're just like basically adding the last character right in the beginning when she wasn't there in the beginning.
Yeah. And everyone understands that she's like also the thing of going off of William Afton. And, the whole thing is just becoming a whole mess. You have a Five Nights at Freddy's game that's becoming a movie. Everyone's liking about it because, oh my goodness, it's the animatronics are coming to life. And they find good-ass people to play as these roles and all that stuff. Perfect, great. We're going to add white gloves on these. We're going to add a person in here that doesn't belong in there. And we're going to make a movie out of it.
You know what I think though? Like, I wonder if this is the same thing that, I don't know if you've seen this or if you heard of this rumor, but when Sonic the Hedgehog, the live action movie, first came out, Sonic looked horrible. He looked like a freaking monster. Everyone hated it. So what people thought was, since Sonic looked so terrible, it was like basically blew up national wide. So they're like, no, we want Sonic to look better. We want him to look like Sonic. And then they're like, okay, yeah, we'll make him look like Sonic. The rumor is that the reason why they did that is so they can have free publicity. So basically, it's like, they just got an ad out for free. And then they're like, hey, watch this. People are going to freak out. And then we'll add the original Sonic.
I just think that with a lot of people finding about books, games, movies, they all turn out differently. And I don't know what the whole point is of like changing a few details to make it a little bit better. I mean, I kind of get it, because maybe they don't want to add something that's from the book so it's not actually similar, so they're not like, copying and resulting in, I don't know what it's called, like it's copying like a theft kind of thing.
Copyright,
yeah. So they don't want to like copyright and actually like, be like, oh, like it's the same as like the book. Why couldn't you make it different? All that kind of stuff.
You said too, like the guy who created Five Nights at Freddy's, he agreed to this. So he's like, he is a part of this.
Well, I'm not 100% sure if he actually agreed to having the animatronics have white gloves. I know that Scott Cawthon actually wanted to make a movie of Five Nights at Freddy's, making it exactly like how the Five Nights at Freddy's are in the actual game. But since you're having a lot of people that are making the movie and trying to make it look good. So there could be reasons why they're changing it up a bit so that it's a lot different than the actual gameplay itself.
Right. We are actually reaching the final minute mark. Is there any last things you want to say before we close this out?
Well, just me personally is that, again, with the whole topic of movies and all that stuff, it's best to just have stuff that are not in the actual movies than rather taking stuff out. Just appreciate what you have and all that stuff, rather than complaining like, oh my god, like, this is not supposed to be in it, you're making them look bad and all that kind of stuff. You get a movie, you have a video game about it, and you should be good and happy.
I agree, but it's like, it kind of also depends. Like, for example, like, like real quick before we are time's up. For like Last of Us, like it's an apocalypse, it's about zombies, but all of a sudden when you watch the movie or show, they're skipping and singing songs. Yes, I'm gonna be pissed if they did that.
It's just best to just, keep it neutral, but keep it to the point where everyone is okay with it.
All right, final 10 seconds. I just want to let you guys know. Thank you for listening, and I hope. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Orion Mass.
And this is Ender.
And today's episode, we are going to talk about two things.